You, my
Good evening, everyone. I would like to welcome you all to the May business meeting of the Croton-Harmon Board of Education. I would like to call the meeting to order. Recommended action that I call the meeting to order. I don't need to do that. Yep. All right. So can we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, as many of you in our community know, a beloved member of our Croton-Harmon family, CET teacher Eileen Fallon, recently passed away. I would like to take this moment right now as a moment of silence in memory of Eileen. Thank you. Recommended action that the Board of Education approves the agenda.
so moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Abstain? Motion carries. All right, we will begin tonight with the library budget, and I'd like to welcome Jesse Borden, who is the director of the Croton Free Library, to present the library's proposed budget. Welcome, Jesse.
Thank you. Well, where do I go now? Good evening.
Thank you very much, Jesse. All right, and from that, we will now move into our public budget hearing. Denise Harrington-Cohen, our Assistant Superintendent for Business, will provide us an overview of our 2021-22 budget. So Denise, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Sarah. And I will wait for Tracy to bring up the presentation. Thank you, Tracy. So good evening. So tonight we will have our final budget presentation and public budget hearing. I think we'll open the public budget hearing now.
Right.
Okay.
7-11.
7-11. We'll begin with the review.
I think.
What-
Yeah,
we need to.
Oh.
we need to move that.
Budget hearing. Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carried. We'll open the public budget hearing now.
Thank you. So we'll begin with a review of our revenues, expenditures, and reserves. And then we'll take a look at budget highlights and the tax levy impact on our community. And then we'll conclude with a review of the 21-22 voter propositions, followed by a question and answer period. Again, this is our final. This is about our 8th or 9th presentation. So we're going to.
I'm sorry.
No.
Okay.
Okay. So we're going to review. I would strongly urge anyone who has any questions regarding the presentation or the budget to reach out to me through budget.questions.org, or you can, of course, call the business office, but our website is filled with all relevant official documents and previous presentations. So we're going to begin with our, oops, you got to go back one, Trey.
Denise, this is Brian. Can you repeat the email?
Thank you. We're going to begin with our 21-22 revenue budget. This is an overview.
Brian had asked you to repeat that email address.
Oh, sure. budget.questions@chufsd.org.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I just want to point out a few changes. As you can see, the second highlighted line down, total state aid. When the budget was finalized, they elected to restore foundation aid, the long-awaited foundation aid. So that amounted to about $400,000, and then we had some expenditure-based aids which went up slightly, giving us an increase of $506,000 in our state aid. Additionally, you'll see an increase in our designated appropriated reserves. This represents the amount that the district designates to balance the budget. And you will see that the tax levy portion, which is our largest portion of $41,427,807, that represents a 1.43% increase. Next, please. Thank you, Tracy.
Did it go too far?
Nope, I don't think it went.
Didn't move. Oh. There.
There we go. Thank you. This is an overview of our expenditure budget summary. You see our general support that represents central data processing, facilities, public information, property assessments, legal, records management, et cetera. Then we have our instructional budget, pupil transportation, and large percentage increase in our employee benefits, one of the largest, and then followed by our debt service, which is what those funds are allocated to pay for existing debt related to our capital projects. And then lastly, interfund transfers. Thanks, Tracy. This is another look by sub-object. which the highlighted column in blue, adopted 2020. You'll see our salaries and benefit make up the lion's share of our budget, followed by equipment, supplies, debt service, and interfund transfers. This is just a pie chart view. As you can see, 75% or so is allocated to salaries and benefits. We are a service industry, and that is the largest portion of our budget. This is just a comparative, back one. Comparative analysis of our expenditures for the last 5 years. As you will see, the only bar that seems to be going up slightly is our benefits and salaries. The other areas such as supplies, contractual, etc., are fairly stable. Now I'm having trouble. Reserves. So our reserves are similar to savings accounts. They allow us to allocate funds to leverage risk and offset expenses. Our reserve funds are healthy. They are in line with the New York State Controller's guidelines, and they allow us to offset expenses as needed. These reflect our fund balance numbers from June 2020, and we are performing fund balance projections now and are likely to allocate additional reserves at the end of the year. Fund balance. So fund balance is used to cover emergencies and unplanned necessities, used for cash flow purposes. It allows us to retain our strong bond rating and also our stable fiscal stress rating. So first we have adjusted restricted fund balance. That represents our reserves that we just,
There it is.
here it is.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
I apologize.
That's fine. So our assigned appropriated fund balance, those are our reserves that we just reviewed in the previous slide. They represent our reserves. I am not responsible for the names of these reserves. I will state, because for most people, they all sound the same. So that is our adjusted restricted fund balance. Then we have our assigned appropriated fund balance, which represents the amount that the board puts forth to balance the budget. And then we have our adjusted unrestricted fund balance, which is the amount allowable by law, the 4% of unrestricted fund balance. Incidentally, 4% amounts to, it's equivalent to about 2 weeks of our expenditures. So it's though the number of 2,031,000 seems high, it really only covers us for 2 weeks. We are looking to ask our legislators to up that amount. So this year we are trending right now at approximately 1.1 million in fund balance. That number will change certainly after our May fund balance projections and then June. However, we have the opportunity, if we do have some additional fund balance, to offset the child nutrition program. We have a deficit in our child nutrition program due to the pandemic and some other circumstances. So that might be a recommendation as we get closer to the end of the school year. Okay, and this one you're going to have to go quick. Quick, yep. So our budget highlights: maintains our robust instructional program and co-curricular and athletics, provides funding for our professional development, equity, diversity and inclusion, and social and emotional wellness, maintains a budget within the allowable tax levy to ensure fiscal sustainability for the district and our community, and meets the 2021 operating standards and tax cap compliance, and of course is responsive to the Board of Education goals and strategic coherence plan. Budget overview. Our proposed budget is $50,755,098. That represents a 2.73% increase. And our proposed tax levy is $41,427,807, and that reflects a 1.43% increase. Tax levy implications for our residents. So we have residents from both Cortland and Yorktown. The bottom is a little busy, though there are a lot of people that really like that chart, which reflects the equalization rates and tax values. So for Cortland, we're looking at a 1.3% increase, and Yorktown a negative increase because of the change in assessments. What you will see at the polls. Okay, so this is thanks, quick. This is a sample ballot. So on the far left, you will see, this is what you'll see when you get into the polls on May 18th. The left is our budget. The center 4 are our transportation propositions. Below that, the aid increase, then the library levy, student trustee, and the candidates for the Board of Elections. I will drill down a little bit closer as we go to the next slide. Okay, thank you. So to review, we have our school budget for $50,755,098 with a 1.43% tax levy. And I'm going to ask everyone to listen closely here because we're going to dive a little bit deeper into this in the next slide. We have Transportation Proposition 1, which is for 2 minibuses, 2 fossil fuel gas minibuses, and 1 EV charger. Proposition 2 is for a 66-passenger electric bus. Proposition 3 is for a 27-passenger electric minibus. And Proposition 4 is for a second 27-passenger electric minibus. And I'll go into those a little bit deeper in a moment. The next option is an additional 10% in aid authorization for our energy performance contract. So we are embarking on an energy performance contract that is that there is a provision in the state law that allows the voters to vote, and if it's voted positively, we will receive an additional 10% in state aid. Then we have our library budget at $895,664, and then our student officio student Board of Education position, and then 3 Board of Education trustees. Thank you. Okay. Click. Okay, Proposition 1. If you recall, Proposition 1 is for 2 gas vehicles, minibuses, and 1 EV charger. We have the electric charger in Proposition 1 because as we were designing the propositions, we couldn't put them in each proposition because it would inflate the value of all of the propositions. And then we also couldn't put it, and also if we couldn't leave it out because if one got voted in and another did not, then we wouldn't have the charger. So we chose to put the EV charger in Proposition 1. Proposition 1 is if it fails, all of the subsequent propositions will fail. This is for 2 necessary vehicles in order to support our student transport needs in the 21-22 school year. And all of the other propositions are contingent on that. If Proposition 1 fails, we would need to look into our general fund budget to support those transportation expenses.
Excuse me, Denise.
So,
I just want to ask.
okay. Oh, sure.
Yeah, just to clarify, could you tell the public how many buses we're talking about total?
How many buses in total?
You need to one at a time.
Because
Okay.
the way it was presented, it sounded like we would get 2 fossil fuel buses and then 3 electric buses. But can you explain how the 3 electric buses would replace the fossil fuel buses for a total of 2 or
Andrea, can I finish this slide? And then if that question isn't answered, I will answer it.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you. So the total number of vehicles that we would purchase would be 3 in total. Okay, so we're going to just go through with the top 3 green circles. So Proposition 1 is for 2 gas vehicles and an EV charger. Proposition 2 is for an EV bus, 66 passenger, and then Proposition 3 and 4 are for 2 EV minibuses. If all 3 propositions pass, the district will purchase 1 electric charger. I'm sorry, if all 4 propositions pass, 1, 2, 3, and 4, the district will purchase 1 electric charger, 1 66 passenger bus, electric, and 2 electric minibuses. The district will forego purchasing the 2 gas vehicles. The next line, if Proposition 1 passes, Proposition 2 fails, and Proposition 3 and 4 pass, the district will purchase 1 EV charger and 2 EV minibuses. The district will not purchase the 2 gas buses in Proposition 1. The next line, if Proposition 1 passes and Proposition 2 passes and Proposition 3 and 4 fail, the district will purchase 1 EV charger, 1 EV 66 passenger bus, and 2 gas minibuses, since both of the 2 EV minibus propositions failed. If Proposition 1 passes and Proposition 2 fails, and either 3 or 4 pass, the district will purchase 1 EV charger, 1 gas bus, and 1 EV minibus. And finally, if Proposition 1 passes, Proposition 2 passes, and either 3 or 4 pass, the district will purchase 1 EV charger, 1 EV 66 passenger bus, and 1 EV minibus, and 1 gas bus. Few reminders. Proposition 1 must pass in order for any of the other propositions to pass. If all propositions pass, the district will forego the purchase of the gas fossil fuel buses. Proposition 2, 3, and 4 are contingent on grant funding and vehicle availability. A maximum of 3 vehicles will be purchased in total and an EV charger. If all propositions pass, the value would be $638,763. Vehicle purchases are also state aidable at approximately 35%. So that 638,000 would go down to approximately 415 after state aid is received in the subsequent year. And if passed, vehicles will be purchased and financed through a 5-year bond anticipation note. Questions? Andrea, did that answer your question?
Okay.
Absolutely, thank you.
Great. So before we head into, I know we have some community members who are present with us
Oh,
online.
wait, sorry. Yeah.
Okay, I was gonna say, I want to see if the board had any questions
Okay,
first.
okay.
This is just on this.
Okay.
Yep, yep. And then our next slide is just some voter information. And then finally, our budget events, which, as you can see, most are complete. We only have May 18th left for our budget vote and trustee election. Please visit our website. Everything that you've seen, all of our previous presentations and detailed information is all available on our website and at budget.questions@chufsty.org. And then vote May 18th at Croton Harmon High School, 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Questions?
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Oh, can you turn Brian up? Can you turn it up?
Yes.
Turn me up. Turn me up.
We can hear you.
All right. Only one speaker on. Okay. So Denise, the question that I have is about Prop 1 and the charger. I read the verbiage of the actual proposition, and it says, it doesn't say one charger. It says a max cost of $65,000 for EV charger. Am I correct on that? Well, I don't hear you.
Yes, you're correct. And that also includes infrastructure costs.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to clarify that.
Any other questions from the board? All right, well, at this, Josh? Okay. All right, so at this point then, I think we can open it up to the community who have joined us. This is a public budget hearing and we will have community Q&A. I would ask that community members keep your questions or your statements to 3 minutes, as we generally do with our hearing of the public. And then you can make your statement, and then if there are questions that you've posed, then we can answer them after that. So.
If I would also say, I'd just like the person to identify themselves for anybody who sees this name and address. That is our protocol.
Yes, thank you. All right, so with that, if someone would like to sort of jump in first or raise their hand.
I'll start.
Omar?
Hey, how's everybody doing? I didn't hear what
One
name.
moment. Now you can speak, Omar.
Okay. I didn't hear what Neil said before. Was it addressed?
Neil had asked that if the public community members who are coming on, if you could just state your full name and your address as per our protocol.
Sure. Omar Mayasi, 8 Beekman Avenue. Do we have a limit on the questions, or can I just shoot a few questions out?
Yeah, you can shoot a few questions out. We just ask that you keep your total time to about 3 minutes.
Sure.
Okay.
So in one of the slides, it showed that there's $400,000 of reserves that are being used on the revenue side. So does that mean, does it translate to, had it not been for the reserves, the budget for 22 would have been in a deficit of $400,000? That's question one. Question two, what's included in instruction? Is it all salaries and wages that that fall under instruction, all supplies and materials needed within instruction? And then lastly, third question, does the debt service include the cost of any of the propositions? And I'll stop there for now.
Hi, Omar.
Hey there.
I can answer all of those questions. So, and I already forgot the first question. The 400,000. Yes, actually, in order to balance the budget, it was an additional $2 million, $2,700,000 Let me just get my exact number. $2.732 million, and those are designated reserves and fund balance to cover the difference between our revenues and expenditures. With regard to the instructional budget, yes, that includes all supplies, materials, salaries, etc. Debt service. The debt service does not cover any of the bond propositions for this fiscal year because they will come into effect next fiscal year. So any bond propositions that are voted in this year will take effect next year. All good questions. Thank you.
It's a question that's on my mind, and I'm sure it's going to be. Do I have more time, by the way, or? Yeah. Okay. That when you look at the screen that had the percentage growth, I know there's a story behind it, but I'm just wondering if you can share it with the community about, instructions growing by 0.9%, but everything else is double that at least. I understand debt service, that's it's a predetermined schedule. But is there an answer or a story you can share with the public around why is instruction the lowest, as on a percentage basis, the lowest growth for next fiscal year?
I would say that certainly we've had some decreased enrollment. Additionally, we have a lot of supplies and materials that were unutilized during the pandemic when we were on remote instruction. Yeah, I'd have to take a closer look at that. But certainly salaries and benefits are increasing at a faster rate.
I
Hold on, Beth.
I think it's also we've had some retirements this year, which also has an impact on total salaries in the instructional area.
You're correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Omar.
I see the lighting is better today than it was on Tuesday.
All right. Do we have someone else who would like to join, like to ask a question or make a statement with regard to the budget? Hi, Patty.
Hi, good evening to all. So yeah, my name is Patty Buchanan. I live at 42 Cullaba Pond Road here in Croton. And my question has to do with the impact for taxpayers on the difference between the purchase of the diesel buses and the purchase of 3 electric vehicles. As I understand it, it's probably a difference of about $320,000. And I understand you talking about the tax levy, et cetera. So I'm just trying to understand what the impact would be on the taxpayers for that differential of about $300,000. And relatedly, there was just a comment a few moments ago about there being some retirements and how that adds perhaps a little surplus to the budget. And so my question also relates to, I assume you have some swish in the budget because of changes in staffing and so on. And would that also offset some of the impact for taxpayers if all 4 propositions passed and you were to purchase electric vehicles? That's my question.
Hi, Patty. So the impact, you had mentioned an amount of 300 something thousand. So if all the propositions move forward, we are looking at a value of $638,000 as opposed to Proposition 1, which is valued at $180,000. The cost, the estimated cost to a taxpayer, if all propositions. Yes,
If I could just clarify the question, I'm asking really about what is the increase or difference, assuming you're going to buy diesel buses and instead you go with electric. So the difference between what you would spend buying what's in Proposition 1 versus the electric buses, I think that difference is around 325.
320.
After the state aid.
And what difference are you referring to? 325?
So you said
Dollars?
if you buy,
Thousand?
if you, yeah, 300. So if you buy diesel, it's going to be 180, you said.
That's not 300.
No.
No.
And if
You're,
Thinking of the-
Patty, are you talking about the value of the cost of the 3 electric versus the cost of the 2 diesel? So that's the 638 minus the 180,
plus
right?
the state aid.
I
plus-
can't hear you.
Plus the state aid.
Yeah, she's talking about the state aid, it's the 450.
May I?
Oh. Neil has a question.
Okay.
I mean, one thing is that differentiation includes it's 3 buses versus 2 buses. So you would be getting 3 buses instead of, that cost differentiation is you're actually getting 3 vehicles instead of 2.
Right.
And the difference to go from diesel to electric is about 325 after the state aid, et cetera.
Yeah. I think it's closer to, about 325.
Okay, so let's use that as our number. And my question then is, across the taxpayer base, what is the impact for the average taxpayer for that additional 325?
Well, without the 325, because they're completely separate, the aid goes into our general fund aid budget. The impact is approximately $150 for a homeowner with a approximately $500,000 home.
And to what extent does that take into account any cost savings from lower maintenance and lower operation costs?
Because of the large purchase price, EVs are rather new, EV buses are rather new, and the funding is limited. But even after funding, the increased purchase price does not level out for a number of years. So the increased purchase price amortized over the life of the vehicle compared to the maintenance amortized over the life of the vehicle. It levels off, and you would probably get 5 different answers from 5 different experts, but approximately 8 to 9 years. And then, I'm sorry, Patty, what was your second question? Would the retirements free up money for vehicles?
Well, it's all coming in the general fund, right? So if you have a little additional money that's saved because of retirements or resignations, you have a lot of staff turnover. Is that one way that some of that impact could be lessened on taxpayers?
No, because as you can see in the budget presentation, there's a $2.7 million budget gap that's being filled by district reserves and fund balance.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Patty. Do we have any other community members who would like to ask questions? Layla, if you could hold on for just 1 second once we rebalance the audio.
Are you, I'm gonna put her on now.
You can speak now.
All right, I'm Lila Goldmark, 3 Hale Hollow. Thank you for having the meeting and public input. I just would like to ask if somebody could, for the sake of anybody else that might watch this later, explain a little bit what actually is the contingency plan if Proposition 1 for the buses fails. I think I've communicated to the board. I just wish it had been written with the contingency the other way around, that we had proposed electric with the contingency being the diesel, because it's very hard for us to wish and hope that we get all of the props to pass so that we can forego the diesel. But I think there had been a lot of good discussion by the board about, before it was written, that we could potentially lease the buses we need rather than buying them, or that we could have an off-cycle bond proposal. So in the long shot event, if the budget were to fail, could you explain to people kind of what would happen and what that timeline would be? Would leasing decisions be made quickly over the summer? Would new board members be seated when they're making some of these decisions? So thank you.
Neil wants to answer that. Yeah. Neil, did you want to respond? I saw your hand up.
And Rochelle.
Yeah, my response very simply would be if Proposition 1 fails, the determination will have to be made by the board in consultation with the administration as to how we will meet those transportation needs. Will it be by purchase? Will it be by leasing buses? That's going to depend on such things as the availability of buses to lease, the cost of those buses, which is a determination that would be made by the board sometime after May 18th and possibly after July 1st, when the board has a full complement in members. I don't think anybody can say right now which one it would be. I will say that from discussions that the board has had, that my understanding is, and I think Rochelle can speak to this and Denise can speak to this, but my understanding is we could not simply put the acquisition of new buses by lease or purchase off for another 12 months. For those too many buses, they have to be replaced somehow. We would have to determine as a board how that will be. And a lot of financial issues come up because, as Denise said, the only way, if Proposition 1 goes down, the only way we are able to acquire those buses by lease or purchase is by taking money out of the general fund budget. So now our question is going to be, how much do we have to take out and where do we have to take it from? We don't know that yet.
And Lila, just to your point, I wanted to say that the propositions were constructed that way because Proposition 1 was a safety net for us. So that at least if Proposition 1 passed, we would have the 2 vehicles. We are lagging in our replacement cycle considerably. We had 2 vehicles that were totaled in a storm. We did not purchase a bus last year. So we are behind our replacement schedule. It is going to catch up. And when it catches up, it's going to involve several bus purchases. So that was a safety net. And again, my phrase is we can't just keep kicking the can down the road. If we're leasing, we still have to eventually purchase to fill the spots for those vehicles that need to be retired because of DOT requirements or otherwise.
I'd only take issue with that. You know, a safety net is the thing that happens if you don't get what you want. And we put that first. Instead of putting the electric first, we put the fossil fuels first. So in that respect, it's not really a safety net, but I don't want to, argue with you about that here. I appreciate that you're all trying to get us to electric. I just not happy with it being a choice where we have to agree to something that we don't want and hope that the collection of other things happens, because that's the safety net. And that's the trouble, I think, that, some of us are having supporting this, and we want to, but that's the issue. So
Thank you for your comment.
thank you.
Thank you very much, Leila. Oh, hold on one second, Brian. Let Brian talk first.
There was something I heard Leila, in your comments, and I want to clarify because it's a point of misunderstanding that I've heard a few times over the past week as I've been talking to people. The budget is a separate voted item on the ballot versus Proposition 1. Proposition 1 is just, Propositions 1, 2, 3, and 4 are solely about transportation. They are independent of the rest of the budget. The budget can pass independently of the transportation propositions. They're voted separately. I just want to make sure that that's clear because I've heard that confusion a few times, and I just want to make sure that everyone understood that.
Thank you. And Brian?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. To the alternate plan, or I forget what you called it, Lila, but as far as if everything fails on these propositions, one of the options that would be discussed is there an interim solution until until such time that we can make something happen. So we would not automatically then just go out and purchase all the buses. We would discuss that as, what would be the best thing and what can we do. So I hear and totally understand the hesitancy about voting that way, as far as supporting something that you really don't want. But it is actually on the table that an interim bus solution is possible. We're not saying we will or won't do it, but it's possible.
Well, thank you. And I mean, that's why I had asked the question before, because I think the way the proposition, I mean, it's not designed for that, but I think being a lot more clear that there is an interim step that could be taken, which is not a full commitment to purchase and lock us in for another 10 years, is something that I could personally accept and would like to see. It's just not, it's still subjective what the board would do in the future. The vote isn't going to lock us into the backup. And that's I don't want to keep repeating myself, but that's the concern.
Yep.
We wish it was written in there so that it was really clear and the commitment was there and it wasn't a kind of subjective thing that the next board is going to have to decide on again after the vote has happened.
Right. And another point that I wanted to make about that is we don't have in the propositions buses must be delivered on, September 1st or whatever. And so even if a bus is delayed, there are options that would not cause us to forego the EV purchase if everything passes. So that, there are things that we can do, because what it says is we have the authorization to purchase EV buses. And it doesn't say there's a cutoff date after which we absolutely can't. So, and we've had discussions about that in public previously. So that's just another point I wanted to make.
If I may, I just wanted to add some of a context in what Brian said, and he's absolutely right. But, and I'm taking this off to just be a little clearer so you can hear me. The monies for that interim solution, if Proposition 1 fails, would have to come out of the general fund budget. Secondly, as Ms. Harrington Cohen said, we're still going to need to purchase a bus or 2 buses and perhaps 2 more buses next year or 3 or whatever that may be. So we're going to have to make that decision, and the interim would be perhaps purchasing fossil fuel buses. That's the board's decision, not determined now, determined in the future by a future board probably. And or we would lease, and then we would be having the same discussion next year. Now, it's possible that next year there will be more grant money available. There will be federal grant money available through the American infrastructure program that is being talked about. There may be less grant money available. The cost of electric vehicles may go down as time goes on. We don't know that. But what we do know for the moment is that we have a reflected need communicated to us by our administration that we do have to replace the 2 minibuses. And we're trying to figure out the best way to do that consistent with our goal to move towards electrification of the fleet and our goal to make sure that we are not placing an undue burden on present or future taxpayers. And that's kind of how this all got constructed and what may happen if we have to face the interim question.
Thank you, Neil. And I'm sorry, Rochelle, did you want to speak?
Hi. Okay. Hi, everybody. First of all, I just want to correct, we're not buying diesel buses, they're gas. I know they're not the preferred, not fossil fuel, but that's our other option. And I just want to bring to everybody's attention that with this whole thing, we know that everybody's very passionate about what they want, the electric vehicles and everything. But there are quite a few items here that are out of our control as the district, okay? We are depending upon state agencies to give us grant money, both for infrastructure, the vehicles. We're working with the manufacturers. All of these timelines and these, whether we qualify and everything, all of that stuff is all out of our control. We've done everything that we need to do, put everything in line. And very possibly we may get all the grants, qualify, we're ready to go, move along, and Con Ed might be our obstacle. So these are not things that are going to immediately happen overnight, even if we're doing all of the right things. What I want to bring to everybody's attention is, while all of these things are out of control, some of the things that are also not within our control is where we're going next year. Our special ed placements are not always within our control. We're already picking up 2 new schools next year. I have no idea what incoming kindergarten is. We may be going to additional schools that don't match with any of our runs. The hours may not match. So we may need more vehicles. The key to good planning here is to be ready for whatever's going to be thrown our way. If it turns out that we have to go to an option that's not our preference, we can't lose sight of the focus is our children's education and providing safe, efficient transportation for them. And that's what we need to plan for. We've covered all of our bases here and given every community member consideration as much as we can. But you have to remember, only some of this is within our control. And we've prepared this proposition to give everybody else as much control as they can have. So we're just going to hope for the best. But don't forget, we've still got to get those kids to school no matter what. Thank you.
Thank you, Rochelle. Now I'd like to see, I know we do also still have a couple other community members on, so I want to see if anyone else has any questions or comments that they would like to make. Okay. If we don't have any more questions or statements, I will then move to close the public budget hearing. Oh, I'm sorry, Patty. My apologies.
Thank you. I actually have a question based on something that was said regarding vehicles that were damaged in a storm last year. It's my understanding those vehicles were replaced. Can you clarify as a factual matter whether those vehicles were replaced?
Yes, they were replaced,
I can't hear Michelle.
but we are 2 big buses behind in our replacement schedule. So we are behind the 8 ball.
266 passenger.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Patty. And with that, I move that we close the public budget hearing. Can I get a second? Oh, okay. Then you can make your question now.
Yeah, I just have a question because I just want a clarification, Denise. When folks began talking about the interim plan and throwing around the general budget, I just want to make sure my understanding is clear. The budget that any vehicles would have to be purchased from would have to come from the budget that's enacted by the voters on May 18th. Is that correct? And that budget was built not with the expectation of having to purchase any vehicles. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And if we have to take money out of that budget to purchase vehicles, then we have to take it from somewhere else in the budget that it was meant to fund something else. Is that correct?
That is correct.
I'm sorry for sounding like a lawyer right now, but I just needed to get some clarity here because I felt there was a little bit of confusion. If Proposition 1 fails, which, we want the community to have full options here, but that means whatever vehicle we need to purchase has to come out of the budget for 2021, 2022, and it doesn't come out of anything else other than that budget.
That is correct.
Iris, that is purchase or lease.
Purchase, lease, I'm just saying, we're throwing out interim plans as if they're going to just exist, but there's a financial component to it, which means it comes from a budget that was constructed to provide our students certain things, but we may have to switch into something else to pay for those vehicles.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Omar has a question.
Omar, you had a question?
Yeah, so just to clarify, the debt service doesn't include the cost of any of the propositions, but if the propositions fail, it has to come out of.
Somebody has.
Sorry. Can I say it again? Okay.
Ask the question again.
So what you had said before was the cost of any of the propositions isn't in the budget for 21 for next fiscal year. It's going to be in the budget for the following year, right? That's when the debt service will come due. If all the propositions fail, then the cost of the bus will have to come out of next year's budget, right? So there's a time difference there. If it passes, it's a 22-23 event. If it fails, it's a 21-22 event. Is that right? Okay.
Yes.
And then just for the record.
And an unplanned expense.
I understand. And if I can just have a follow up. So if Joshua had said like there's retirements and resignations in the district, does that mean that those positions are no longer funded in the budget?
No, that does not. That they're funded because of the savings in their salaries compared to new hires. That's where the gap is.
Okay.
So In other words, we have a teacher who, let us say, is paid $100,000, retires. We're hiring someone who's paid $50,000.
Mm-hmm.
The budget is constructed to recognize that there will be a lower personnel cost for that teacher. We also, of course, take into account the increases, that contractually or otherwise people have. And all of that is factored into the total, the global amount of 0.9% that you pointed out, that you noted earlier. I would also add that any monies, as Denise said before, any monies that are going to be raised through bonding is raised over a 5-year period, because we would sell 5-year bond anticipation notes. So the debt service would be added to our debt service total for, over the 5 years, ratably, however that works. And of course, any debt that is retired comes off of our debt service at that point in time. As far as the state aid that was mentioned, that does not come to us in 21, 22 necessarily. It comes when the state gets around to giving it to us. And we don't know when that's going to be.
Okay.
There are a lot of reports and things that have to be filed. So that is considered to be revenue as part of our state aid, but not next year. It is not reflected in the 21, 22 budget. And we have experts, people who we consult with, who help us figure out what we might expect in future years and when, with regard to various categorical state aid like transportation aid.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for that clarification. And then, yep, okay. I guess final question. Again, for the record, for the public, what's the average mileage on a bus? So if we were to do
Approximately 4,000 miles, 3,000 to 4,000, no?
It depends upon the vehicle. The vans can do 26,000 miles a year. We go as far as Connecticut. But an in-district bus may only go for, sorry, my lights keep going out. An in-district bus may only go 4,000 or 5,000 miles a year. Some of them only do 3. There's a big range. We go to 22 different schools right now, but in-district is different.
and would you know at this point where the electric buses would be utilized for, which routes?
Well, if we got, yeah, I have it figured out, but I consult with the dealer on that also. The problem being is that an electric bus coming in here, if I put it on my longest route, that route only goes 26 miles a day, a big bus. On a van, it would be a different story. We could do 22,000 miles easily in a year on a van, but a big bus, no, because the in-district routes are short. The kids are on the bus for no longer than 30 minutes or so. Most of them 7 to 10 minutes.
I'm trying to figure out the cost per mile, like the cost of the vehicle per mile used on an annual basis.
A vehicle per mile for what?
So if an electric bus is going to be used in district,
Yeah.
that's basically whatever it is, $300,000 for one bus, gross cost divided by 4,000. That's one number. If it's going to be used out of district, right, you'll divide that cost over 26,000 miles.
Well, that's an operational decision that has a lot of variables to consider.
Okay.
First of all, the electric buses are equipped differently than the big buses that we're used to buying. The electric buses will not be used for sports trips because they have no underloaders to load the sports equipment. So that's going to limit it. It's also going to matter about where would it go, because it has to be charged depending upon the length of the trip. And the other thing is, we really need to learn a little bit about these buses when we get them before we send them out. So there's a learning curve here.
Thank you, Rochelle.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay. With that, then I will move to close the public budget hearing. Can I get a second? Yep. Seconded by Neil. All in favor? Aye. Oppose? Abstain? Motion carried. Thank you very much. Thank you to all of our community members who joined in to ask your questions. And thank you, Ms. Harrington-Cohen, for giving us an overview of the budget again. Thank you. And so with that, I will move into my president's report. And the first thing I have on my president's report, I'm very excited to share with you all. We recently had a student who is a student at the Pines Bridge program at Putnam Northern Westchester BOCES, Tanner Dago Mitchell, who was recognized on April 28th as a student of distinction at the Pines Bridge School. We are so very excited to be able to acknowledge him tonight and very proud of his accomplishments. So I see Tanner's mom is with us, so congratulations, and we are so proud of Tanner's achievements.
Thank you. Likewise, we are as well, and I appreciate the honor. He's actually in bed. I was hoping it was a little earlier. He's in bed already, but thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, and the next up on my president's report is I just would like to note for everyone that the high school will be doing a spring musical, Rodgers and Hammerstein's Carousel, and the virtual streaming dates will be on May 14th and 15th at 7:30 p.m. You can find information about how to purchase tickets on the agenda here and also, I believe, on our district website. Also, we recently had the NYSSMA, which is the New York State School Music Association. They recently had a virtual festival this year, and several of our students performed, and all of the NYSSMA performances have been completed. We're waiting for the scores on the Up County Festival, but in the Down County Festival and the level 1 through 4 string festival, a majority of our students were rated either excellent or outstanding. So we want to congratulate all of our students who participated in the NYSSMA festivals this year. And in athletics, we are looking forward to the Teal Pink softball game on Friday, May 21st, under the lights versus Pauling. And Croton will also be hosting the league track and field meet at Spencer Field on June 7th and June 8th. And we are also in the process of planning for the fall season. So a K-12 alert will be sent out with information about important upcoming meetings for the spring, during this spring, and also for season start dates for the next school year. And lastly, I would be remiss if I didn't take an opportunity to note that it is Teacher Appreciation Week this week. And so on behalf of the board, I wanted to offer my most sincere and heartfelt thanks and gratitude for all of the hard work that our Croton Harmon teachers do day in and day out for our students. And in particular this year, it has been a very big challenge for all of you, and you have just gone above and beyond. And we are so, so grateful. So thank you. And that concludes my president's report.
Did you want me to say anything about the?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Doesn't quite conclude my president's report. I'm actually going to turn it over to Tracy Borges, who will give you an update on the Board of Trustee candidates.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. So in April, I received petitions from 8 candidates, and they were Anna Teague, Elizabeth Faber, Dr. Omar Mayasi, Mary Obermeyer, Lindsay Mergens, Brian Loges, Kathleen Reddy-Gidry, and Jordan Humphrey. Kathleen Reddy-Gidry has since withdrawn her candidacy. So per Education Law 2018D, the district is required to extend the nominating deadline by 15 days from the date of the withdrawal. Therefore, the deadline for nominating petitions was extended until May 11th, 2021 at 5 p.m. So a letter was sent to all absentee ballot recipients, notifying them of the candidate's withdrawal and also giving them the opportunity to request a new ballot. I have not received any new candidate petitions as of yet. If a new candidate is nominated, a drawing of the candidates' names will be done and a revised absentee ballot will be sent to all eligible voters who requested an absentee ballot. If you do not complete and submit the revised ballot by the 5 p.m. deadline on May 18th, the ballot you submitted previously, if any, will be counted. I just wanted the community to have an update on our candidates and the ballot. So thank you.
Thank
This-
you very much, Tracy.
Oh.
Okay, and now we will move into our hearing of the public. Do we have any community members who would like to make a statement during hearing of the public? Okay, well, with that, then we will move on to our superintendent's report, and I will turn it over to Dr. O'Connell.
Well, good evening, everyone. And thank you for those who attended our budget hearing, and thank you for your thoughtful questions. So before I engage our principals in my superintendent's report, I would just like to read a letter that I received this week. It says, "Dear Dr. O'Connell, the New York State School Boards Association, NYSBA, recognition program is designed to acknowledge those school board members who strive to continually expand their governance knowledge and skills. NYSBA's recognition program is comprised of 4 achievement levels, which are reached by accumulating points for participating in various NYSBA training activities, including state-mandated training workshops, Board Officers Academy, legal workshops, convention-related events, or custom board retreats. For more information on our recognition program, please see our enclosed brochure." But moving on, our records indicate that 1 or more of your members of your district board of education have earned one of our board achievement awards ranging from level 1 to level 4. So it is my honor to announce that Mr. Josh Diamond, you are being recognized for your level 1 board achievement, which I have your letter and certificate here, and our president, Miss Sarah Carrier, to congratulate you on having earned level 2 Board Excellence Award. So congratulations to our board achievement and just our board in general for the countless hours you are all putting into this work of the school district. So again, reading that, I was most proud. The remainder of my superintendent report, I've asked our building principals to be with us this evening so that you can hear about our re-entry once again to our full-time in-person learning model and how things are going in the building. So we'll start with, how about we start with Miss Duback and we work our way to our elementary school, because I think last time I started with the elementary school. I could be wrong, but Miss Duback.
All right, thank you. So first of all, I just want to express how thankful we are at CHHS for the thoughtful process in which we engage in our return to school 5 days per week with our staff, our administrative team, students, and our reentry task force. I have personally been filled with pride every day seeing what we have accomplished at CHHS this year, and I'm really honored to have worked with our staff to make this last transition happen. We really appreciated and utilized the transitional professional development time on April 19th and the afternoon of the 21st. We used the time to collaborate, plan, adjust our physical spaces, and be ready to welcome back 80% of our CHHS students 5 days per week. I'm thankful to our students and families who have fully embraced the in-person model and have really committed to being here 5 days a week. This has allowed our teachers to plan and focus on what those in-person experiences look like, while also being very thoughtful about the experiences for our fully remote students. The knowledge of that consistency of what model students are in allows us to do this. What we are also seeing is a greater ability for our teachers to get back to more ongoing formative assessment in classrooms, which is something that was significantly more challenging in the hybrid model. And we have a greater ability for teachers to assess and monitor student work in real time and engage in many more of those coaching conversations during class. Assessment for learning is such an important part of teaching and learning, and we are happy to have a greater ability to do this with more students in the building for the full week. Equally as importantly, the energy here has really invigorated us among our students and among our staff. I was talking with a teacher today who shared how much energy she has felt coming back to herself as the students have been in the classroom full time. We hear more laughter in the halls. We hear lively class discussions. We see more notebooks and pens being used, fewer computers, the sound of hammers and paintbrushes in our art classes. We have CHTV filming with their full groups. We have our much louder full band playing in the auditorium, which was much needed as we began our fourth quarter at CHHS. We've also grown and learned so much as a school community this year. So some of the protocols that we were worried about, like individual desk shields, additional bells, et cetera, are things that we have all been able to get on board with and adapt to relatively quickly. We've been working together to make adjustments to make things run more smoothly. We've added some features like more outdoor seating for lunch and 2 tents that will be put up shortly to allow students to eat outside even when the weather is not great. At the same time as being so pleased with what we were able to do with many of our students back in person, we are still just as focused on our 20% of students who are fully remote. We have had a remote learning coordinator point person system in place since the beginning of this year so that each remote student has an assigned faculty member who works with them once a week or every other week to support them academically, socially, and emotionally throughout the year. These coordinators also serve as resources to parents as well. Erica Fiorini, our Dean of Students and a remote learning coordinator herself, has coordinated and executed this program, so I want to thank her for that. On our first Friday back 5 days, we had a wonderful ice cream social hosted by our PTSA for our in-person students during lunches, and we invited our fully remote students to come and connect and have ice cream with us after school, which was a really nice bonding experience for them. We are also looking at our remote learners and seeing them still connected to our school in person through things like sports, so that they're able to get those experiences as well. And finally, we continue to really utilize the time on Wednesday afternoons really well for teachers and students to meet individually and in groups. And this time is often focused on our remote learners, so now they get even more of that time with fewer of them. Finally, I just want to end by sharing how much we have going on this spring at CHHS. We are in full swing with all of our events. We recently inducted our newest members into the National Honor Society in an in-person and hybrid ceremony for our students. We filmed the CHHS drama, and our student activism club hosted the Take Back the Night event last week. Our spring musical is being filmed as we speak down the hall from you, and will be released for viewing on May 14th and 15th. Our seniors participating in Choose are wrapping up their last weeks of classes here. Our Science Research Symposium will take place on May 25th. Our band and orchestra are planning for an outdoor concert on June 3rd, and our AP Art Show will be on June 8th. We'll have our school-wide awards ceremony to be shared on June 4th, which is also our senior prom, and our junior prom will be on June 16th. And of course, we'll be looking forward to our class of 2021 graduation on the 24th. We're busy here at CHHS making sure that every day back together counts. So thank you for the opportunity to share an update now that we have transitioned for several weeks to our 5-day per week model, while still planning and moving forward with all of the excitement that spring brings. We're happy to be here and appreciate all of the support we have received from our community as we made this transition. Thank you.
Okay, I guess that means it's my turn. Thank you very much. It's nice to see everyone. The transition to full-time in-person instruction has been an amazing experience. I could truly say that our teachers, staff, Ms. Scollins and I have never worked so hard and in such a steadfast manner than this year, and through various transitionary changes that have brought us to our current state. There's been a celebratory mood that has gripped the students of PVC Middle School. They arrived at school on April 20th to find a large black and orange balloon arch welcoming their entrance to school and signifying this momentous occasion and that we are all together again. That first week of the transition was emotional, exhausting, and one of the greatest and happiest of my career. Our students are faring well as they traverse the hallways, following the prescribed routes and the directional arrows of how to get to and from class. They're really doing a good job in following the health and safety protocols. They carry and use their personal protective shields all day and in every class. They are benefiting from the in-person experience, and I have heard from numerous parents about how they have seen their child's demeanor change for the better. They're less anxious and more focused on their studies. In my visits to classrooms, I have seen students engaging in learning and teachers engaging in the learning process with great fervor. Our students are happy to be back, and they have demonstrated their appreciation through their cooperation and a renewed attention to their learning and to life at PVC Middle School. Aside from restoring a greater sense of normal to the lives of our students in PVC Middle School, there's one aspect of success that I wish to highlight in this transition that stands out as a saving grace and an incredible triumph. Through much thought and consideration, we found a way to provide students with a wonderful experience during lunch after hearing from our middle school principal group how difficult this was at other schools. No longer at lunch, do students have limited lunch options, or are students relegated to an abbreviated time outside. Instead, through our careful planning and our collaboration with our food service colleagues, students now go through the lunch line, eat in the cafeteria, and most of them are eating outside. They have many food choices, and they're playing at recess. For me, having children in the fresh air and sunshine for a full 40 minutes has been one of the things that I'm most proud of. Watching them play and frolic during recess continues to be one of the greatest joys that the adults experience at PVC. Our transition would not be complete without our efforts being aimed at our children who are still remote. 7% of PVC students remain at home and attend class via Zoom daily. We earnestly want a connection with these students and pledge our continued support to them. To this end, last week we hosted a connection circle with these students and had a wonderful time talking about our collective triumphs and struggles. We will sustain this effort and have already planned our next opportunity to support them and connect with them further. We want them never to forget the friendship and support they have in us, in our school, and in their community. The last 3 weeks have been amazing. We've had a Spirit Week. Our Students Assistance Council has hosted several events. Our school counselors are very busy connecting with students, checking in with students. And we've also admitted the ELA and math exams via the computer-based platform. We are making great progress, and I'm happy to declare that this transition has been a resounding success that can be measured in the energy that goes into learning, in attendance, and how technology continues to perform and support learning, and how students are able to be emotionally supported, in the alleviation of stress from staff, parents, and students. We did it, and our greatest hopes have been realized. In closing, I wish to thank some people who have made this transition possible and to recognize the collective effort that went into this. I include this not only to express my personal gratitude, but to point out the arduous journey that all of us, including our superintendent, assistant superintendent, and colleagues at the district office have been through since last March. I want to thank first our custodial staff. Through their tireless efforts, they have been able to traverse numerous transitions, and that includes Mr. Gibbons. They move furniture, they stack shields, and they stand by my side as we guide traffic in the morning. I also want to recognize our aides, for they are the backbone of our student support system. Through this transition, their flexibility and attentiveness has enabled us to ensure the well-being of our students and the fidelity to our health and safety protocols and procedures. We could not have implemented many of these changes without their support and willingness to pivot time after time. Our food service manager, Eric, and his colleagues, Leah, Gloria, and Tara, they've exceeded expectations and restored a piece of PVC back to normal and to its former glory at the perfect time. I also want to thank our students and their families, for they had the trust in us and supported us along the way with encouraging words and words just to keep going. Making, this all work was truly a partnership, and one where we cannot forget the role of the family and the student in this transition process. And last but not least, our teachers. There are really no words that can adequately express how grateful I am to the faculty of PVC. At the end of the first week of the transition, Ms. Scollins and I wrote a little memo to them that expressed our sentiments of praise and that expressed our perspective of where we've been and where we are on this day at the end of the first week of the transition. I'd like to read you that in closing. You just made it through the most significant and prolonged storm of your life, and throughout the tumult, you adjusted, reinvented yourself, and you grew. You made it through the storm, a better, more capable person. You love more and love others more because you understand the importance of love now more than ever. You save a life and friendship in good times because the storm has taught you to cherish these things. We arrive at this week with mixed feelings and emotions, a combination of exhaustion, glee, and concern. Yet here we are. It is Friday at the end of our first full-time in-person week, and we could see the sun peeking out of the dissipating storm clouds. We hope that when you look in the mirror this weekend, you see a loving, strong, confident person looking back at you. You earn these accolades and adjectives through your toil, perseverance, and diligence. At least when you look in the mirror this weekend, you should remind yourself, I did it, and I did it well. We are proud of you and how far you have come and how well you have come along the way. We wish you a weekend with no worries or thoughts of this place, only 2 days of bliss and a persistent feeling of satisfaction. You so deserve that. Thank you for welcoming our students this week and for being part of one of the greatest comeback stories ever. Go and be proud. Thank you.
Thank you. Carrie?
It's always hard to go last because you find yourself echoing the sentiments of those who went before you. I do want to start by reiterating what Laura indicated and thank the board and the community for the support of April 19th and April 21st. That time at CET was invaluable. We used time to move classrooms and to reallocate spaces and to set up barriers. CET was in a little bit of a different situation than the other two buildings because we had our K1 and 2 students in 5 days a week since September. So that concept of being fully back in person for those children was not unique. However, the ability to bring those cohort A and cohort B groups in K1 and 2 back together was magic, to say the least. Popping in and out of classrooms and hearing one little child say, I'm so excited I get to sit next to 3 friends instead of 1. Because at 6 feet, they were at a 6-foot table with a divider and there was only one child that they could really even have, interaction with. And they were so excited to see those H shields and realize that they could sit with 3 friends instead of 2. And again, just to see those little moments in children's eyes was really spectacular. I also want to reiterate what Michael said about the energy and the positivity in the building. When you go from classroom to classroom and you see what I'm just, for lack of a better word, call normal instruction, again, it's magical. Was in a kindergarten classroom yesterday where the kindergarten students were engaged in literacy centers. That is not something they've been able to do since the beginning of the year because it was very difficult to replicate the same thing you did in the morning in the afternoon. There was a lot of catching up and making up of teaching time, and being in this classroom, and with the exception of the children wearing masks and having the barriers up, it was a normal academic morning where students were working in literacy centers and were learning and engaged and leading foundations lessons. So it really is just that bringing those groups back together was amazing. In third and fourth, again, our students had been in, but to bring those Croton and Harmon cohorts together and for the very first time for those classes to be united was an amazing thing. Teachers, students, all of our staff has really embraced that. And it's been amazing to see more kids in the hallway and more kids in transition. And it just really has been heartwarming to see that return to normal instruction. Students are now able to collaborate with their peers in a way that was very difficult when half of them were remote and half of them were in person. So it really has been a shift to what the teachers are referring to as normal instruction. So we've come a very long way. And again, without the time that was allotted to our faculty and staff to plan for and actually navigate the physical move, it would not have been as successful as it was. So again, I want to thank the board for supporting that, Deb and John for really hearing us when we said that that was something that was important. And again, like Michael said, to the custodial staff and clerical staff, when it came to moving tables, loading things up and getting them back to PVC, setting up barriers, counting chairs, counting tables, measuring how far everybody was away from each other. It really was a collaborative effort, and everyone's efforts do not go unnoticed. We were also, as a result of our transition, able to bring our morning strings and band back to an in-person model safely. So we now have, for the first time this year, our strings groups and our fourth grade band students back at CET. And I have to recognize our PE staff for their sacrifice of the gym for this year. Them sacrificing the gym from September till January, from September till April, allotted a classroom to be in that space and be together. And even though we collapsed our classes and put them back in their classrooms, they are still sacrificing and allowing the gym to be used as the cafeteria space. So we are using the multi-purpose room and the two gyms as lunch spaces. And again, it came with sacrifice and a lot of work, but it has worked out beautifully. Kids are in there, like Michael said, they're eating normal lunches, they're enjoying each other's company, and they're still in a safe location. Again, an additional benefit to our shift was to put music and library back in their spaces. So Mrs. Horton is now conducting her music classes from her room, and Miss McManus is conducting library classes from the library. I want to point out that the fact that art is not back in the art room was a collective decision that was in the best interest. If you move children into the art room, it would have required a sharing of materials that nobody felt comfortable with. Keeping students in their classroom with their designated materials was a safer, better approach. So I just want to explain why two of our specials went back to their spaces and the other one did not. Again, that was through a lot of collaboration and discussion as to what made sense for that particular special area. We have seen an increased opportunity for our children to be outside. They are outside every possible day for recess, additional academic and social time, as well as snack time that takes place outside. So we currently have 90% of our CET student population back in CET 5 days a week, full time, and 10% remote. Our 10% remote students have been given additional opportunities to stay connected to CET. They are invited in for in-person PE classes, weather permitting. They are invited in for social interactions. Some of our grade levels are doing like a chew and chat where they sit outside and they have snack and they are able to be social. There's also opportunities for fully remote students that are comfortable coming to the building to come outside and share projects and report to the class like they would if they were standing in front of their peers in the classroom. We also make sure that we are including our 100% remote students in all of our morning greetings and our afternoon closings. We make sure that birthdays are announced. If a child is remote and they have a birthday, their birthday pencil is sent home to them so that are not missing that piece. There are some fully remote students where families are still not comfortable sending them even to an outdoor opportunity, but we're making sure that we continue to offer them so that people feel like they are connected and they have those opportunities to take advantage of when they are comfortable. So again, it really has just been for me, just a sigh of relief and excitement to see our students back in normal settings, doing normal lessons and collaborating with each other, and for the teachers to be able to give equal amount of time during the day to an entire group of students rather than feeling like they're split between two locations. So really, thank you for all the support that we had through this and for the thought that went into making this transition not only possible, but so successful.
Thank you to our three principals. And again, in honor of Teacher Appreciation Week, I'd like to just share one of my favorite quotes, because I do think whoever wrote this had the Croton Harmon teachers in mind. A teacher takes a hand, opens a mind, and touches a heart. So thank you to all of our teachers. And thank you from the bottom of all of our hearts here and in the board, as well as our district office and our administrative team. We are most proud of the work you're doing each and every day, because at the center of the work is a beautiful child. So that concludes my superintendent's report for this evening.
Thank you very much, Dr. O'Connell. And thank you to Ms. Duback and Ms. Bianchi and Mr. Plotkin for joining us tonight and giving us an update on the buildings and how reentry is went. It was wonderful to hear from all of you. And with that, we will now move into new business. So 5.1, we have some policies for first readings. So I will turn that over to our policy chair, Neil Haber.
Thank you. You will see on the, well, let me first say that the policy committee met on April 26th, and we went through a large number of policies, most but not all of which were in the area of finance and financial business office operations. This was part of our long-standing or long-running work on the audit of our policies provided to us by NYSBA in some time ago, and we are going through each one of them and determining whether they should be changed, rescinded, or stay as is. So each of the policies that you see in 5.1 are policies that are either going to be new policies or are going to be revisions to policies. Each of the policies are provided in track changes, so you can see what the changes are, and any questions on any of them can be sent to me or to the policy committee, Andrea, Iris, myself, and we will address them. These will all be on for second reading and approval in June, unless there's anything that we need to do further work on. You will note that on some of these, there are some policies that are in the 1000 and 2000 series. And those are policies that we went back and also looked at, mainly to make certain corrections to meet regulations and changes in law. So I might as well go on to item 5.4.2, policies for rescission, because those are basically the same story. And we just felt after reviewing them that they were no longer needed. And then subject 5.3, which is policies for continuation without change, as I said a moment ago, those policies are ones that we felt were not needed with for any change. And I would move, unless there are any questions, that we that we follow that action. But before I make that motion, it says here, policy 6410, authorized signature, bracket, if no change is required, see above. Policy 6410, there is a change that has been proposed. So in that motion, policy 6410 should be removed from this motion. But with that change to what is on the agenda, I move that the Board of Ed conduct a first reading of these policies, and upon unanimous consent of all members present, we waive the second reading and continue these policies without change. Well, I've moved that, so you'll second. Mhm.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Oppose, abstain? Oh.
Oh, that's what you were
I was
raising.
like, no oppose,
Okay.
no, yeah. So
Okay.
no oppose, abstain, motion carries. All right. So that then brings us up to 5.4. Recommended action that the Board of Education approves and ratifies the terms of the ACU AIDS of Croton United Memorandum of Agreement, and hereby authorizes the Superintendent of Schools and the Board President to execute a collective bargaining agreement consistent with the terms presented.
Second.
Second.
And second. On the question? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Abstain? Motion carries. Thank you. And now we will move into donations. Recommended action that the Board of Education gratefully accepts a donation of a mounted canvas art print from the CET PTA. It will be hung inside the Welcome Center cubicle at the Carrie E. Tompkins Elementary School in remembrance of Mary Ellen Carullo.
So moved.
Iris moves it.
Second.
Josh seconds. On the question? All in favor? Aye.
With gratitude.
Oppose? Abstain? Motion carries. Yes.
I have it up on the screen. Can I just show it so folks can see what we did?
You absolutely can. Yeah, if you want to put your screen to. Iris is going to show a picture of the poster. And again, we thank the CET PTA for that remembrance of Ms. Carullo. Now, recommended action that the Board of Education gratefully accepts a donation of a lilac bush from the Kindness Club to be planted at Carrie E. Tompkins Elementary School in honor of Eileen Fallon.
So moved.
And Andrea moved it, and Neil seconds. On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Abstain? Motion carried. And again, thank you very much to our PTA for that. It was a very lovely gesture. I'd like to recommended action that the Board of Education gratefully accepts a donation of a variety of school items from Croton Caring for students who need support at Carrie E. Tompkins Elementary School, Pierre Van Cortlandt Middle School, and Croton Harmon High School.
So moved.
Okay. Can I get a second? Iris seconds. On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Abstain? Motion carries. Recommended action that the Board of Education gratefully accepts 2 donations from Eric Kohler and New York Life in the amount of $200 each as a contribution to the Carrie E. Tompkins Elementary School General Fund.
Second.
Iris seconds. No. Okay. On the question? All in favor? Aye. Oppose? Abstain? Motion carries. Recommended action that the Board of Education gratefully accepts a donation of $330 from Mothers Out Front as a contribution to the Pierre Van Cortlandt Middle School Social Action Club.
So moved.
Second.
Andrea seconds. All in favor?
Well, I have
Oh.
just a quick
Aye.
question.
Yep.
I noticed this is an executive session. It had somebody's address in it, that's why.
So I would just, can we redact that? My question was, I noticed that this was in executive content instead of in the regular agenda. Can we redact out that which would be
The address, yes.
privileged and place it so folks can see what was going on?
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Oppose? Abstain? Motion carries. Recommended action that the Board of Education gratefully accepts a donation in the amount of $4,000 from the Richard Albert Family Foundation as a contribution to a scholarship at Croton Harmon High School.
Second.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Oh, Andrea, thank you. On the question? All in favor? Aye. Oppose? Abstain? Motion carries. And again, thank you so much to all of our donors who made these contributions this month and have take the time to consider our school district and support our students. We are very, very grateful. So thank you. We will now move into instructional personnel. Recommended action that the Board of Education approves the appointment of Nicole Mundell, 1.0 FTE elementary teacher, as a leave replacement for Craig Campanaro at Carrie E. Tompkins Elementary School, effective March 24, 2021 through June 30, 2021, at an annual salary of $64,294 MA Step 1 to be prorated. Ira seconds. On the question? All in favor? Aye. Oppose, abstain, motion carries. Be it 7.2 instructional personnel recommendation. Be it resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, hereby appoints Cassandra McCalman as a 0.4 FTE elementary teacher, elementary tenure area, and a 0.6 FTE special education teacher, general special education tenure area, at the Carrie E. Tompkins Elementary School at an annual salary of $64,294 MA Step 1. Ms. McCalman is appointed to a 4-year probationary term as an elementary teacher and a special education teacher, commencing on March 4th, 2021, and probationary term ending on March 3rd, 2025 in the tenure areas of elementary and general special education. In order to be eligible for appointment to tenure, said teacher must receive at least 3 APPR ratings of effective or highly effective pursuant to Article 3012D of the Education Law during the 4-year probationary term and may not receive an ineffective rating in the final year of probation. Ms. McCalman has initial certification in childhood education grades 1 through 6 and students with disabilities grades 1 through 6. And be it further resolved that Cassandra McCalman's prior appointment to the position of 0.4 FTE elementary teacher and 0.6 FTE special education teacher at the Carrie E. Tompkins Elementary School on a non-tenure bearing basis based on Ms. McCalman possessing an internship certificate is hereby terminated effective the close of business on March 3rd, 2021.
So moved.
Josh moved it. Can I get a second? Iris seconds. All in on the question?
Yes, just, I'm wondering, this is an appointment of a teacher who for 2 tenure areas, one of which elementary would be 0.4 and one of which would be special ed 0.6. So my question is, since I understand that as a general rule, we do not award tenure to teachers, correct me if I'm wrong, that are part-time teachers, less than 0.5. What is the tenure area for which this teacher would be eligible for consideration? Is it elementary school because the teacher has the certification in both childhood education 1 to 6 and students with disabilities 1 to 6? Or is it just students with disabilities because that is the area in which the appointment is more than 0.5, or is it both?
So it is both. If a teacher is employed and has a certificate area of 0.4, they're able to accrue seniority and get tenure in that area. and therefore hold seniority on two lists simultaneously.
I see, which would mean if for any reason. Which would mean that if for any reason a board down the road felt that this particular teacher was appropriately deserving of tenure in one but not both of those areas, the board could make a decision to grant tenure in one area and not the other?
I would believe so.
Okay, I just asked because I do not recall previously the board ever having someone who is seeking tenure in two tenure areas simultaneously, or would be eligible for two tenure areas simultaneously. So that will be before the board sometime in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Oppose, abstain? Motion carries. Recommended action that the Board of Education approves the instructional personnel probationary appointment of Gina Fitzsimmons, school nurse, Croton Harmon High School, at a salary per the next CTA contract, Step 10, effective August 23rd, 2021, 52-week probationary period to end August 22nd, 2022. Okay, Neil moved it. Can I get a second?
Second.
Iris seconds. I'm sorry, Andrea seconds. I keep saying Iris instead of Andrea. On the question? All in favor? Aye. Oppose, abstain? Motion carries. All right, we will now move into the consent agenda. Recommended action that the Board of Education approves all items on the consent agenda. All right. On the question?
I have a question, and I'm so sorry. I meant to ask you, Dr. O'Connell, during your report while you had your principals here. I noticed one of the things in the consent agenda was the district-wide summer program. And I just wanted to see if you could just talk about it just a little bit, because I think it is something that, or John, I'm sorry. I meant to ask so it wouldn't be part of the consent agenda, because I know that's normally not a discussion.
We'll have John speak to it.
We're so thankful for the board support that we are being awarded some funding for summer programs. As we mentioned in a previous meeting, we were very excited to look at how we could start to mitigate some of the learning effects of the pandemic through some innovative summer offerings. And as we mentioned, in addition to making sure that we are attending to the achievement levels of students, that we would be looking at the type of experiential learning that they may have missed, as well as some of the social emotional opportunities they may have missed. And it is a credit to our teachers that once we put our ideas out there of the kinds of opportunities we wanted to offer to our students, that they were so gracious with their time, with their talents and interests, to work with the principals to propose what you see before you. Upon approval, we're going to be very excited to work collaboratively to really take these offerings and present them in a way that will really invite our families to be participants in these great offerings.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All in favor? Aye. Oppose, abstain? Motion carries. All right, we are now in the closing of the meeting. So we have our second hearing of the public. So this is an opportunity for any community members who would like to address the board on matters related to the school district. And if we have anyone who would like to speak, please let me know. I know we still have a community member at least in the All right then. Well, with that, we will then move on to board reports. So I will first turn it over to advocacy. I'll turn that over to Andrea.
Advocacy hasn't met since our last meeting. Oh, can't hear me. I'm sorry. Advocacy has not met since our last meeting, so I have nothing to report. Again, the public helped us in terms of the budget, and we'll probably meet just to come up with some further plans. But right now, there's a lull.
Thank you very much, Andrea. All right, and now we will move into board development. I can hand that over to Iris.
Okay, so the board development had a chance to meet. There are just a couple of things we want to update the full board on. One is, and actually, Sarah, you can help me here with the superintendent evaluation. I noticed that we have already received from the superintendent the portion that needs to be done. Are we going to keep the dates for the board? Okay. So what we're going to ask all board members to do is if you could please log in to the superintendent evaluation and put your results no later than May 28th. Please put that date in big on your, bold on your calendar, because at the June 3rd meeting, Sarah would need to have everything in by then. So again, so that's May 28th for us to put down and fill out the evaluation. The second thing I wanted to discuss was I really wanted to thank on behalf of board development, all of the community members who have stepped up and put their names into the hat to run for board trustee. As a part of board development, one of the things we wanted to make sure is we tried to engage the community as much as possible into this process. And we're really so happy and thankful that the community will have an opportunity to choose between now 7, possibly 8 or more. We don't know what will come in between now and the 11th, but at least 7 wonderful candidates. So thank you so much for those members who have stepped up. And also, I know we have on the website now, I think it's on the website, a copy of the video from the Candidates Forum to give everyone an opportunity to get to know your candidates. So we encourage the community to take a look on our website, as well as any other forum that might be hosting candidates and asking them to come and talk. I get a chance to go out there and meet and see your candidates. We also have a retreat coming up in July. And so if there's anything in particular a board member would like us to cover, if you could send that information along to me, I will make sure when we sit down and start planning the retreat, we can incorporate that into the discussion. Did I cover everything, ladies?
You know what, Iris? One thing is that we've been working on onboarding material for the new.
We also discussed quite a bit in our last meeting about the onboarding and resources that we'll make sure we have for the new board member who will be taking over former trustee McFadden's seat and starting essentially immediately after election. So we've worked to make sure we have some resources there and people for them to be able to meet with and get a little bit up to speed.
Yes, actually, thank you for reminding me. There's also, I believe, NISBA or WISPA, one of them will be hosting their new board member program, I believe, in June. So that's wonderful. That means the person, anyone that's elected will have the opportunity to receive the training prior to being sworn in, with the exception of possibly the individual who starts on May 19th. But again, as Sarah mentioned, we have spoken with council, we've spoken with BOCES, and we're putting together the resources to help the transition along for that individual.
If I may, just on that subject, two things. One, I think a large part of what our July retreat will be, and I might as well say it publicly now, is kind of bonding, team building, and getting to know the 2 or 3 new board members who will be joining us. So I think that's really a lot of what we should anticipate doing. I don't know what else people might have, but I think that's really going to be an important part of it. The other thing I would note about that NISBA training, the NISBA training, and this is for the candidates who will be elected, NISBA training in June will be virtual. And the NISBA sessions after June will be not virtual, but will be at various locations. So whoever is elected, if they don't want to have to take the day to travel to wherever it is, because they don't have it in White Plains, they have it somewhere else, it might be to their advantage to, to take the June sessions. And I think the June sessions are like 2 shorter sessions instead of 1 long 5-hour session. So that's something that our new colleagues should keep in mind.
Yes, and if anyone needs the information, please feel free to reach out to either myself or Tracy Borges. I'm volunteering, Tracy, for information on those events, as well as the retreat currently is scheduled for July. Is it, Tracy, do you know the date for that July meeting? It's that second. We can also get you the date for it's the third week of July, I believe, is the retreat. So just so everyone can start planning with your schedules.
Thank you, Iris. And Andrea, did you have a comment as well?
It was the same comment you were making, Sarah.
I'm sorry.
It was the same comment that you made.
Great, thank you. Okay, so now we will move into, we'll move on to Communication Committee.
So the Communications Committee has met several times since our last meeting, primarily to focus on communications concerning the budget vote, the transportation propositions, the proposition on an ex officio student board member, and the proposition on the energy performance contract, as well as the communications about the school board vote and the budget vote. Obviously, it's our endeavor, we endeavor to ensure that the public understands what is out there for them to vote on. And we continue to encourage the public, if you have questions, to read the information on the board on the budget website at chufsty.org. And if you have questions, please do send questions to, please refresh my memory, Denise.
budget.questions@chufsd.org.
Thank you. The other thing that the Communications Committee has been doing has been to think about how we communicate, and we've been thinking about that in broader terms, and we always accept the public's input on ways that we can communicate more effectively, and we do thank everyone who has reached out to us. The final thing from communications is that normally we would have had a Meet the BOE session on the Tuesday before the business meeting. However, because today was the official budget hearing, we thought that there may be follow-on questions to that, so we rescheduled the Meet the Board of Ed session to next week. It will be on Tuesday the 11th. There are daytime slots and also evening slots. So if you're interested in that, a K-12 will be going out with the sign-up link. Please avail yourselves of those opportunities to meet with us.
Thank you very much, Josh. I will also, if I could just for a quick moment, remind the board members to make sure that you have gone on to the sheet and signed up so that we do have 2 board members available for those daytime and then the evening sessions. So please check that sign up sheet. And Iris, you had something?
Not really, it's just mainly a comment because I was glad to hear Josh indicate that the board is always welcoming input from the community on ways to communicate, because a common thing we always hear is the communication could be better or stronger. So I really hope the community will reach out to the communications committee and share any ideas they have or ways that we can further get the message out, and also hear from the community when they have questions or concerns. And the same thing I meant to say with board development, if any candidate had any questions about board service, every single member of the board, as well as the administration, is here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. And then last up would be policy, although I'm not sure that you really need to speak to us given the updates during the meeting. But.
No, I could talk about that.
I'm sure you could, Neil. Thank you. With that, we will move into polling of the board. So does anyone have anything for polling? I'll hop in first and just say that we did have our final PVC Building Planning Council meeting of the school year today. We discussed a lot about transitions, the transitions from 4th into 5th grade, and the transitions from 8th into 9th. And there are a lot of great things that the building and the teachers and administration have worked to put together to make sure that our students are getting some time in each of the buildings in small groups, and the teachers are also going out and doing some outreach at either CET or at the middle school as well to work with those classes so that they have good transitions in those 2 transition years. Other than that, we talked about, we took a look again at the code of conduct, reviewed the changes that had been made, was it last 2 years ago? And sort of saw where everything was and how that's evolved. And that was really it. So it was a good end of the year meeting.
There have been a few questions that I've heard, and there are certainly questions in my mind about the status of our after-school program at CET. There seems to be, I've heard some indications and nothing from administration on this directly that I could find, but discussions around that YMCA might not be coming back to operate that program. And I wondered if we could, I don't want to put the administration on the spot on this tonight, but if we could get a report on that at our next work session, I think that would be really appreciated.
Josh, are you referring to Children's Space program?
No, I'm referring to the programs that the YMCA operated.
Okay. Do you know how long ago that was? I don't think I was present at that time.
They had them before.
We had them as
2019.
Yeah, pre-COVID.
I thought they were adult programs.
No.
No, there were children's programs for CET students that were, I guess you could call it, enrichment type programs, art, and science, like junior scientists, language, etc., that were run by the YMCA as an outside contractor to the district. And I guess certainly in 2020 that fell by the wayside, and
they stopped when we closed. Right.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll get you a report.
Thanks.
Neil?
Yes. Couple things. First, I attended the high school building planning council today. We got a update of all of the various activities and celebrations that will be occurring between now and the end of the year at the high school. Ms. Dubak mentioned one, which was the, which is the musical carousel. There will be a few other things that she didn't mention, which I think we ought to just note. The first is that orchestra and band concert will, okay, June 3rd outside, and I will probably, I hope, because I asked, end right before we start our June 3rd business meeting, because it was going to overlap, and I didn't think we really wanted to have a drum solo outside our windows as we were meeting. Yeah, well, unless we do. The AP, the art show, did you mention that? So I guess I missed it all. Fine, did she mention about when the proms are gonna be?
Yes.
Okay, so I guess I was asleep. I have nothing else to say about this. I do have something to say about something else. And it was really something that is for, I guess I'd like the administration to get back to us on, which is an article in the Journal News on Tuesday, talking about the fact that New York State will allow, because of coronavirus and our closures, schools to provide an extra year of education for students who would otherwise age out at age 21, either at the end of 2020 or at the school year, or at the end of the 2020-21 school year, our current school year. And apparently some districts have been considering and have implemented that additional support for that group of students, and other districts have not. I would just wonder if the administration could address whether or not that is something that we have present students who are receiving those supports, have not yet graduated and are reaching 21, who we might be able to service, and if so, whether federal monies through ARP or through CSSRA would be available and usable for that, for those services.
We will provide that information. We've already started to have those conversations with Karen Gatto, and so we'll ask her to provide.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have anything for polling? Iris?
This is actually just a statement. I just wanted to say how wonderful it was to have the reports from the principals and to hear what's going on in the schools. So often our meetings have more business that we have to take care of, but I always do appreciate knowing how the students are impacted by the decisions and how they are faring. So I want to thank the administration for that and that update.
Thank you. Anyone else for polling? Andrea, Brian? Okay. All right, so then we'll move into items needed for the next Board of Education meeting. Our next Board of Education meeting will be the May 18th 10-year celebration that we will be holding outside in front of CET. So just be ready to be there. That will really be the main business of our evening is that 10-year celebration, along with our retirees and 20 years of service and national board certifications. So yes, so I look forward for us being able to do that celebration in person, since we were unable to do so last year.
Yes, and just on that note, we will be in the loop. So whether, let's hope it's cooperative in the loop of CET. We'll be following all of our rules for outdoor gathering. And again, what we are looking to do is invite, and we'll very soon know who will be attending, people from last year as well as this year, since they didn't really have an opportunity to have an in-person piece to that. So More to come on that, but it really will be, that will be the business of the night. You'll act on the tenure in a similar fashion to the previous years, just that we'll be outdoors. And I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. And with that, I believe we are coming into the end of our meeting that we have live streaming to our community members. So we will be heading into executive session and expect to adjourn immediately following that executive session. So it was time for us to say goodnight and thank you to those of us who tuned in to join us, either joining us on the Zoom and your questions during our public budget hearing or watching us during the live stream. And with that, recommended action that the Board of Education enters into executive session to discuss the employment of a particular person or persons and to discuss CTA, CSEA clerical, and CSEA custodial contract negotiations. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Oppose? Abstain? Motion carried. All right.